Word up YouTube,
Hello,
it's Trev here,
and I'm Nathan.
with Summit or Nothing, and today, well, we're quite excited about today's video. We have been approached by a company called NatureHike to review a tent. This one here, the NatureHike Cloud Up. It's basically a two-man tent. It's fairly lightweight, we'll have a look at that closer in a second. Yeah, so we're going to put it up here just for a quick sort of eyeball, have a look at it, have a look at the feel, the materials, then we'll go through some of the spec.
Yeah, so what we're doing, we're not going to set the Banshee up, but we've got the Banshee as a two-man tent that we have been using from Vango, that we're going to kind of do not a direct comparison, but we are going to compare the two. What we've experienced with two-man tents in the past is with all of our equipment seems to take up a lot of space in the tent, so we would normally prefer a three-man tent, wouldn't we?
Yeah, if we were sharing.
If we were sharing. So you've seen the review of the Banshee, you've seen that get set up, so we're not going to do that today. But we have got some scales, so we're going to compare weights for you.
Okay, so 000. This is the Banshee we're weighing. Now the Banshee comes in at 1.95 kilograms. So this is the NatureHike, 1.74 kilograms.
So there is, near as damn it, a 210 gram difference between the two. As any of you that have tried to go lightweight will know, that 200 grams here and there does add up soon to being a much lighter pack. Until we set it up, we don't know whether we need the ground mat or not, but if we remove that and then weigh the tent again, so it's just the tent on its own,
1.48 kilograms.
So now we're looking close to a 500 gram difference between the two. So without further ado, let's put the scales down and let's get started. So already it feels like it's quite a generous bag that everything's packaged in, and that's something that you in the past have sort of found quite important, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why the Vango, for me, with the sort of opening up the side, is beneficial.
This looks like quite a handy little sort of packaging strap. So again, it's down to the individual if they use those, but if you are really looking seriously to save weight, that's another item that you can sort of leave out. Let's see what we've got.
Now it's a two-skin tent, so there's going to be an outer and an inner.
So I'm guessing, Trev, that what we're going to do is we're going to put the poles in, clip the inner to the pole so it's all set up,
Yep.
and then pull the fly sheet over the top. From looking at it, I don't know, but I'm guessing that's what we're going to do.
There was instructions I noticed in the bag. So yeah, all the instructions are there. I've been looking at other reviews that people have done on this tent, and they seem to have made a lot of alterations with this than earlier models. We'll go into that later.
So this is an interesting sort of setup, isn't it?
I should imagine if you was positioned it somewhere you don't want it and you want to move it, you'd be able to just unpeg it, and this would hold it pretty much into place, so you could just shift it around.
Or if you're somewhere like Bleak House Ruins, where you can't get the stakes into the ground very much, with this setup, it's not really going to be essential that it's staked out either, is it? Because it's going to be freestanding.
Yeah.
So that's another benefit over the Vango again, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Right.
So skeletons up. Now that wasn't too painful, was it?
That was very easy, very quick, very easy. And judging by the headspace in there, I think you could actually sit up in there on your own quite comfortably. I have got to say though, at this point, its ability to hold two people seems questionable.
But then, very rare is a two-man tent actually a two-man tent. You'd get one man in here with your gear.
I suppose as well, it depends on the size of the vestibule at the front for how much additional equipment you can store not actually in the tent with you. So we'll get into that now, shall we?
So it's definitely a sort of a good meshy, I think that's quite breathable.
Yeah.
Looks it, doesn't it?
But it's also going to keep, it's fine enough to keep midges and all sorts of insects out as well.
There's a nice lightweight stakes.
So it looks like on the corners, similar to what we've had on some of the Vangos, that you've got the sort of lightweight plastic clips that sort of clip in, and these are great for really helping you to centre and line up the fly sheet over the top of the main tent, so you can't really go wrong with that. And then obviously there's enough slack on there, you can add additional tension depending on sort of whether it's wet or whatever, if there's any give in the material. So what I tend to do is I tend to slacken them all off to start off with, so it's on and lined up, and then sort of go around and add a little bit of tension as we go. Bearing in mind we haven't staked out the tent at all at the minute, it's just completely freestanding. But there's definitely tension sort of coming into the fly sheet now as we pull it down. Yeah, sweet. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stake out the four corners of the main tent as is, so it holds in place, and then we'll look at seeing if we can sort of stake out the vestibule and get an idea of how much space there is in the front. Alright?
They're great little stakes, aren't they?
I don't know if you guys can see, but there's sort of three sides to these tent pegs, and you've got these little pieces of string that make it really easy to pull them out. But I've got some lightweight tent pegs that were in like a V shape, and they do still sort of bend over, but these having the three sides, I imagine it's a real super strong design, and they are incredibly light. So, you know, even down to the little details of the tent pegs, it seems like a really well designed tent. Now, we've set the tent out basically, we've got a couple of tent pegs and guy ropes left over. I believe these go on sort of either side just to give it a bit of stability. I'm guessing because it's a ridge and it creates a sail, you've got to have them out in higher winds just to stop it sort of folding over.
So what do you think that was then?
I'm guessing that's a protective mat for going underneath the
ground sheet.
Yeah, to protect the ground sheet.
So at the moment it doesn't look like it'll need it because it's a waterproof bottom to it anyway.
It's a much thicker sheet than what's already the ground sheet of the tent. You know, if you have an idea of where you're going, if you're going to be camping in a woodland where there's all sorts of sticks and twigs and whatnot, you might want to take this with you just to ensure the safety of the bottom of your tent. However, if you know you're going to be on open moorland where everything's going to be grass and you're fairly confident that you're not going to be pitching up on anything that's going to pierce the bottom of your tent, by all means leave this at home, I guess.
Yeah. I noticed on the reviews that I was watching earlier from the earlier versions of this tent that the two main pitfalls was condensation, which they said now they've got a breathable mesh to sort of combat that, and also it wasn't very stable in the wind. So I'd imagine that these, with the extra guide ropes you got, you could thread through here, pin that, and that would help stabilise it in the wind. So already it looks like they've vastly improved this product. Okay, should we have a look in?
Let's have a look inside, shall we?
So you're secured with Velcro as well as your zipper. Roll that out the way, tuck that into the toggle there. Now we're in the tent.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, I see what we were saying. This is a very thin material, very thin, very light. You probably would appreciate the mat underneath, so that's probably why they put it in there. But it's in bad room. You wouldn't necessarily get two rucksacks in the little vestibule outside, but for one man on his own, I'd say this is a good lightweight option. A good alternative to the Vango Banshee.
And weight-wise, it's significant improvement over the Banshee, and price-wise, it's about the same as the Banshee.
Fairly similar. I think the Banshee sort of online ranges from 96 to sort of 120. I've seen it for 129. This one is retailing at 119 on Amazon. I'll put a link in below should you wish to purchase one. Well, I am absolutely chuffed with this. I'm going to give it a test first out in the open, but definitely for me coast walks I think it could be a good option.
It packs up very small and neat as well, doesn't it? I think there's probably enough space in the bag for this that you could put that ground sheet in there as well and just have it all in the one bag, couldn't you?
Yeah, well, we'll have a look at that in a minute when we pack it down. So good.
But you could get two people in there at a push, couldn't you?
You could do. And I mean, if I wanted to take my son out, there's plenty of room for us both, I would have thought.
And the vestibule is enough that it would offer significant shelter if you wanted to cook just outside the entrance of the tent whilst led down.
Yeah.
You can put your boots and the sort of bits and pieces out here and they will stay dry, won't they?
Yeah, there's the vestibule area. Yeah, you could easily pack your boots here, zip it all up, have your dirty wet bits staying out here.
So looking inside, one of the other things that's quite noticeable, and I'm guessing it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but for me, especially with the using the tarp option that we use at the minute, when you look inside, because it's such a lighter sort of breathable material, it's generally just a more pleasant sort of brighter space to be in inside. It just doesn't feel as gloomy and as closed in as the Vangos and the tarps we've been using. So one of the other sort of key points that's notable is in both the Banshee and the Mirage, it's almost impossible to sit up, as I am right now, without feeling hunched over. With this, the way it's got this single sort of ridge pole, oh look, it's got a little hook for your torch on there as well, look, I've only just noticed. But because it's got this sort of centre ridge pole, you've got plenty of headroom. I mean, if I was to sit forward a little bit, two of you could sit up in here quite comfortably, you know, have a conversation, especially if you were sort of stuck inside because of the weather. It is a really impressive setup for a tent. I mean, I've seen this sort of pole arrangement before on some sort of MSR tents, but they're coming in at sort of £300 a tent or whatever, like, you know. So to come in at this price point with that weight reduction over what we're using, and obviously you can bring the weight reduction down further if you're willing to take a bit of a gamble on the ground sheet. It's a really impressive little tent. I think obviously the review hinges upon its actual use in the field and obviously testing it. So it's all very well sitting here in this weather and giving it a wonderful review, and it is a nice tent. What we need to do is to test it with the rain. So if you want to sleep in here tonight, I'll get the hose pipe out. And we'll just...
And the wind machine.
Yeah, and the wind machine. And, well, I'll fart in its general direction whilst holding the hose pipe over it. And if it can stick that for 12 hours, then it's a good tent, right?
Might melt.
Yeah, it's not protected against chemical attack. So having just done a little bit of online research, it seems that this tent would be a great comparison and competitor for the MSR Hubba Hubba two-man tent. Now that tent's coming in at sort of close to £400 if I think the place I saw it was Go Outdoors, so you could probably get it a bit cheaper. So to come in at £120 and gram for gram be identical in weight. Both tents have the option of a removable ground sheet to sort of bring the weight down to 1.5 kilos. I think if you were looking for a lightweight tent and couldn't really afford to go to the price of the MSR, on the outlook this is a really great little option, and sort of given what we've seen so far, short of being able to test it in the weather, I'd say that this would be a great alternative for that weight. When you think it's only another ½ kilo on top of what I carry for my tarp, and have a ground sheet, the problems we're having this time of year with insects and everything crawling all over you and getting bitten, that seems like a really great little option for a sort of one-man tent. So I'd strongly consider that myself, I think.
Another thing that we've noticed, there is not one point where the fly sheet touches the inner sheet. So there's no risk there of the two skins touching, so it doesn't look like it's going to absorb condensation from the fly sheet through to the inner. Also around the back there's another place here, you've got your little window, it's got a rigid little piece there, so you can have that for airflow as well, more breathability there, and then you can tie another guide rope off of that to hold it apart. So that's the first look at the NatureHike Cloud Up tent, and from first impressions, impressed. Now I will mention that the company, when they sent it to us, they did say if there's any fault they want to know, they'd like to improve it, and you can tell they've been doing this in the past, taking on board what people are telling them and making alterations. So what we've got now is something that they fine-tuned. They want to make decent, affordable alternatives to your more expensive tent.
I mean, obviously being who we are, we were quite cynical that someone was going to send us a pile of rubbish, but in actual fact we couldn't have been more wrong from the look of it right now, could we?
No. Now the only way to really test this is to test it for durability. So one camp isn't going to cut it, is it? So what we're going to do is now give it the long-term test, see how long, you know, this puts up with Summit or Nothing wild camping, and you all know how they turn out. And we can test things like the stitching, the zips, you know, do the stakes hold, do the guide ropes hold, and just see, you know, over the course of a year, how it fares.
You can buy 3 of these for the price of the MSR. So if one of these comes anywhere near close to being as durable as an MSR, then you know it's a no-brainer that this is the way to go for bang for your buck. Yeah, I think we give it 12 months of Summit or nothing and see how it holds up, shall we?
Yeah. Okay, so now it's time to see how easy the NatureHike packs down and gets put back in the bag. And we might even try and fit the ground sheet in the same bag.
I think we should.
I think we should. So we don't even need the plastic bag that the pegs come in. You just put them straight in the sock, saving another gram or 2. One in the other.
Yeah. What I try to do when I'm doing this is I use the bag as a measure for how long the roll should be. It's way too wide at the minute. So fold that and just fold it over until it's much narrower. Yeah, that's it, like that. As you go, try and squeeze it.
Strap.
Incredible.
That was painless,
Wasn't it?
wasn't it?
I left the tag on in case you did want to give it away.
That's alright.
So now that we've stripped out what we don't need, and we've only put in what we intend to use,
So 1.74.
you could get rid of the tent pole bag, you could get rid of the tent peg bag, you could get rid of that strap. I mean, we could probably get that under 1.7 as a base weight for the whole thing, you know, which is actually less than what the MSR is being advertised at. So, you know, that's a great little tent. Really happy with that.